Hi guys, today we're back with another book review. Today I'm going to be talking about SIDDHARTHA by Hermann Hesse. This is a pretty tiny book, but as you can see, I absolutely devoured this book. I really love it. I learned a lot from this book, which are fairly new ideas at this point of my reading journey. I didn't think I'd catch up on new ideas and fresh thoughts and fresh take on pre-existing philosophy and beliefs. It's really refreshing to see a new perspective on familiar ideas. I really just dug deep into what it actually means and the implication of the philosophy that this book has to offer to everyday life, to reality, and not just in this book but actual life. What I do when I read a book, if I'm in the mood, I write down my thoughts. If I have a pencil on hand, I annotate the book. I write directly on the spaces, but this time for some reason I decided to put my thoughts in these little pieces of paper. There's a lot, and as you can see here, there is a lot of it's almost all of the pages. I rated this 5-star, and if I could rate it more, I will. Although there is some downside, I really got a little bored right in the middle towards the end of the book. That did not stop me from giving this a high rating because having a good conclusion redeemed the book for me. It is a pilgrimage book. It's about finding yourself. It's about finding wisdom, or defining what wisdom is in the first place. I find this very similar to The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. So if you have read that book, just be aware that it would have the same feel. But really, this book is different. If I would dare to say, it's better, in my opinion. It also reminded me a little bit of The Little Prince. There is a passage in this book. I used like a faded highlighter so you can barely see, but it's an entire passage about SIDDHARTHA discussing what meditation is all about, and that got me into writing down this thought. What is peace? What is it in the first place? Here I said, is it freedom from war, or is it really detaching yourself from the war? Because SIDDHARTHA here said, the drinker does indeed find escape. He does indeed find a short respite and rest, but he returns from the illusion and finds everything as it was before. He has not grown wiser. He has not gained knowledge. He has not climbed any higher. I think what SIDDHARTHA meant in this passage is meditation really, does it really bring you peace? Where in fact, doesn't it just distract you from life itself? SIDDHARTHA in the book kind of made an analogy where he described meditation as similar to alcohol drinks, getting drunk, and according to him it has a similar effect because you just distract yourself for the night. You don't really escape your problems. What you escape is reality, and that concept of peace, according to SIDDHARTHA in the beginning of the book, is not true. It is fake. It led me to think about the real meaning of peace. In my notes I wrote down, is it really peace or the absence of war or anything, including peace? It's like removing color by removing all colors. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's really how I digested the first idea that I got from this book. One of the most whoa moment for me when I was reading the book, another passage here, SIDDHARTHA said, we are not going in circles, we are going upwards. The path is a spiral and we have already climbed many steps. This is the perfect example when I say that. This is a book that gave me new ideas because this is an idea that I haven't read from all of the books that I've read, and I've read a lot of books. I've listened to a lot of motivational speakers, I don't know, like successful people talking about their lives, success stories. I've read a bunch of those, but this is the very first time that I've encountered this kind of theory or this idea. Whenever you feel like you're going in circles, by that I mean you're going through the same thing over and over again, like problem getting over it, and then here comes another problem, maybe even bigger problem. You feel like you're going in circles and you feel like you're not going anywhere. On the other hand, people, when they describe success or when they make a drawing of success, they always draw a staircase, right? The journey to success is always compared to a staircase. You take one step at a time to get to the top, but then it's always linear. It's never spiral. It blew my mind to think about an already existing idea, which is the staircase, and telling me that it's not a linear staircase. It's actually a spiral staircase. And you feel like you're going in circles, but really you're still going upwards. And that to me just made more sense. But yeah, sometimes you get to a point in life when you feel like you're going nowhere. You're not moving at all, like you're just in one static place. And even if you are climbing up, you just do the same thing over and over again. The staircase is spiral. That idea just completely blew my mind. Of course, you know, when you read a book, you don't just agree with everything that the author said or the character told you. Sometimes when I contradict some ideas that to me just doesn't make sense, or, you know, I feel like I'm having a discussion with the author and just trying to find loopholes in his theories and his story. For example, in page 41, here Siddhartha talked about being awakened finally. Only on page 41, there's still about like 100 pages left. And I felt at that point he wasn't really awakened. He was just awakened at that moment. When I was younger, around 24, 25, maybe like 23, I really felt like I know everything about life. Like I had this certain awakening moment where I thought it was like the real thing. You know, I felt like I'm smart enough. I know what's going on. I understand things. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is the real world. I am awakened. But you see, I was just awakened at that moment. The idea that you shouldn't blame yourself for the decisions you made when you were younger, because at that time, you made that decision based on the knowledge, based on the facts that you understood and you have at that point in your life. So there is no really one awakening moment. There are many awakening moments. Every time you solve a problem, you are awakened because you know something that you didn't know before. It's like gaining wisdom. So there is no really a real awakening. There is no optimal awakening. There is just a series of awakening. I guess I wish that was discussed in this part of the book, because in here Siddhartha was just saying how awakened he was. This is one of the things that I've learned over time. It's okay to change your mind, you know, it's okay to change your ideas of life, your beliefs. You can change what you think. You can experience another awakening by realizing that everything that you knew in the past is wrong. You know, and you're suddenly awake and you're suddenly realizing something new and something different, and that's okay. I don't know if this is my idea or I got it from the book, because I didn't write down the page number, but I said here, and soon he will again be awakened, constantly discarding wisdom like snakeskin. I think this came from the book. All depending on the age and level of understanding and maturity. Another thing, by the way, that I was kind of iffy about is Siddhartha's dreams. They were kind of weird, but then at the end of the day, all dreams are weird, right? Like, one thing that I remembered from reading Damien, another book written by the same author that I read first, was the taboo part. I guess when I was reading this book, I was kind of anticipating a little bit of that, and there is a tiny bit, but not as crazy as Damien, you know. But again, the conclusion and the overall feel of the book really redeemed it for me. All of like the tiny details didn't matter. I even put a question mark over here because it was like confused me. The lovemaking scene was also kind of awkward to read, so I had to skip all that. Just saying. It kind of felt like a little bit more Murakami for me. You know, Murakami's sex scenes are always just awkward. Maybe he meant it that way and that's his thing. This book, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, has a little bit of that feel as well. Oh, this part of the book I wrote something. The quote is, "They were no longer a game and a toy. They had become a chain and a burden." What I wrote on top here is actually Suga's lyrics, Suga from BTS, from the song Magic Shop, when he said, "My greed that was my weapon suffocated me and also became my leash." It's an idea that is parallel to this line right here when Siddhartha talked about his dream or his goal in life, his pursuit of wisdom and pursuit of knowledge and just pursuit of success altogether, which in the beginning was his driving force, eventually became the leash or the burden that choked him. And in life, it's also like that. Another debatable idea in this book, or debatable chapter in this book, was when Siddhartha left his partner. So in the middle of the book, he fell in love with this woman, and he left her because he was dissatisfied with his life and he was seeking more. In my head, isn't taking responsibility of something or someone or accepting the result of your action, isn't that also wisdom? Like, isn't there wisdom in that? Because Siddhartha was constantly seeking wisdom alone. Maybe, which wasn't discussed in the book, maybe wisdom can also be found sometimes with someone else, and it doesn't have to be a solo journey. I guess my only issue in the book is Siddhartha left her without saying goodbye. I was quite surprised that the woman didn't mind. In modern times, I would say like women will mind. Ghosting is still a goodbye, but at the same time, it's not the most honorable way of saying goodbye, and it takes character to have a conversation with someone and explain why you're leaving. The most important and my favorite idea that I got from this book was it formed like a summary or a conclusion to not just this book, but every single book that I've read that talked about self-help, self-development, and seeking wisdom, finding yourself, coming of age. All of those books. In Siddhartha, Hermann Hesse, the author, really beautifully summarizes all of the ideas that you picked out from every single source, and all of the other ideas that I picked out from different books are just branches off of a big tree of wisdom. Basically, on page 99, he said, "Too much knowledge had hindered him. Too many holy verses, too many sacrificial rites, too many mortification of the flesh, too much doing, striving. He had been full of arrogance. He had always been the cleverest, the most eager, always a step ahead of the others, always the learned and intellectual one, always the priest or the sage. His self had crawled into this priesthood, into this arrogance, into this intellectuality." It got to a point where you just accumulate all of this wisdom and you have no idea how to sort it out or how to categorize them. All of it is just floating in your head and you just don't know how to make the connection. So that leaves me to my very last thought. I really do recommend this book. If you're reading this for the first time, it's great. But if you're a reader like me, and you've read a lot of self-help books and books like this, like pilgrimage books, finding yourself book, you should read this book at the end of that phase and glues everything that you already know to form this one solid idea of what wisdom really is all about and what gaining knowledge really is all about. It's transitory. In page 100, Siddhartha said that all forms were transitory and that there is no single answer to one complex question. You'll constantly learn new things, discard old things. I really do recommend this book, especially if you've lived the life of a thinker. When you feel like you've read every single book out there and no idea is new, then read this book. So as an end note, I really just wanted to share something that I wrote on my initial thoughts on Goodreads. I really recommend this book, only if you've read everything else. I don't suggest reading this book until you live a life of a thinker, until you've gone to a point where you don't know what to believe anymore, because all of the ideas you picked up over time have turned into a confusing maze of interwoven thoughts. Once nothing makes sense anymore, read this book. It will sum it up for you. It's really an amazing journey. This will go down as one of the books that changed the way I think. A book that I really recommend that you read. and just one of my favorite books of all time. This is gonna be an insert because I forgot to mention this, but on the last chapter, which by the way is the best chapter, Siddhartha managed to meet up with an old friend. This old friend asked him to share what he's learned throughout his life, and Siddhartha said, "No, I am telling you what I have discovered. Knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. One can find it, live it, be fortified by it, do wonders through it, but one cannot communicate and teach it." That is also the same reason why Siddhartha left Buddha, because he actually met the real life Buddha in this book. He said, words passed down, he doesn't trust. That is just eye-opening. Another new idea. His best teacher, according to Siddhartha, is experience. And even this, me telling you about these learnings, they're personal to me and they're my wisdom alone. And you should discover your own wisdom by going on your own journey. Do not seek it from other people, because wisdom can never be communicated. I'm glad that I read this book. I wouldn't have read it if it wasn't for RM of BTS. So thank you. Thank you for the recommendation. Actually, he recommended Damien. Actually, he didn't make the recommendation. He was inspired by it. And I just read it. And then from there, I decided to read another book by Hermann Hesse, which is Siddhartha. That is this review. It's all over the place. I just have a lot of emotions right now because I really love this book. And yeah, it's just like having conversation with me, I guess. I really just love conversations. My friends will definitely be hearing a lot of me quoting this book and just sharing the thoughts that I gained from it.